Now, running a YouTube channel can be a somewhat heartbreaking affair on occasion. You see, you can put an awful lot of time, effort and money into creating this amazing, wonderful travel content that just nobody really watches, and then you can spend about 5 minutes doing a silly something nothing off the cuff video that everyone seems to watch, and it can become a massive viral hit. And sometimes you can sit there thinking, like, why do we bother doing these things? So today I'm going to do something very, very basic, very simple, very low key. This video is just going to be me and my good buddy Lawrie from Lawrie's Mechanical Marvels going out to lunch. And we thought we'd have something a little bit different. We're big fans of Chinese, big fans of Italian. I was having a chat with Lawrie the other day over a pizza, and he said he'd never really had any proper tapas. So I decided that I would take him to a nice tapas restaurant. So where would you get good tapas? Well, of course, we had to come here to Barcelona. I mean, doesn't everyone just casually go for lunch in Barcelona? Oh, and we're also being given one of Kia's brand new Cee'd GTs, which we're meant to only have for a couple of hours, but we've done a deal with them to drive it all the way home back to England from Barcelona. So I suppose this isn't just lunch, this is also the world's first, or I think YouTube's first road trip in the new Cee'd GT. I'm really not very good at doing these simple videos. Bugger. Do you want to get lunch? So this is La Boqueria. It's awesome. Right, so it's probably about time that we actually get this video underway proper. This is actually our second day of being here in Spain. Now, the car that we're going to be driving all the way home is the new Kia Cee'd. However, they are also launching at the same time its brother, the Pro Cee'd. Now, the Pro Cee'd in this new development has changed its identity somewhat. It used to be the 3-door option, but 3-door hatchbacks really haven't been doing very well at all. So Kia have decided to take the Pro Cee'd in a completely new direction. And until I actually saw one of the cars for the first time yesterday, I didn't realise what that was. Now, having seen it, I'm actually really quite interested in it. So before we get on the road with the Cee'd GT, which is their slightly spicier version of the Cee'd, I thought I'd show you around the Pro Cee'd. So here it is. Now, the big thing about this is, of course, the body styling. Kia have decided that it shouldn't be just buyers of premium marques that get access to the lovely shooting brake anymore. In the words of the documentation that they gave us about this car, it's not a hatchback and it's not an estate car, wagon, whatever you want to call it. It's basically a very, very good looking car with quite a few design cues taken from the company's own stinger, things like that. Now, this is the Pro Cee'd GT, so it's the sportiest version available. Now, this is essentially no more power than what the GT had before. Their idea is that what they want to improve is the driving dynamics, the feel, the handling. Now, it's absolutely no secret whatsoever that Kia and Hyundai are related companies. Now, not when they get to UK level, but somewhere up in the tree, possibly in Korea, I don't really know, they are related and they do share tech and they do share people. One of the people that they have half-inched in recent times is Albert Biermann, who was previously the head of BMW's M division. So when I say that the Koreans are taking their sporty cars very seriously, I really, really mean it. And there was a great article I read with him where he said that he's given an awful lot more freedom with the cars at Kia and Hyundai than he ever was at BMW. So he really enjoys creating these fun, focused driver cars, which aren't all about this quest for never-ending power figures. So we're really looking forward to getting these cars out on some very interesting and cool roads. So the interior of this is quite nice and fun. I'll show you in here. And of course the GT, rather than the GT Line S, is designed to have a slightly sportier feel about it. But you know what? These cars, the prices of these, so they're under £30,000 list price. So you're talking about 28,1 something for this. Now, I've been recently daily driving a BMW 1 Series that when it came out cost about £30,000. There is absolutely nothing in this car really that feels at all down market compared to my BMW. Genuinely, hand on heart, we've said it many times before, Kia are on this absolute mission to improve the quality and the reception that their cars get. It's working. It's really, really working. So this is our actual steed for the journey home. This is the Cee'd GT. Now, slightly confusingly and oddly, but I think maybe smartly on Kia's part, this car is the sportiest car, but it's actually somewhat cheaper than the Cee'd GT Line S that we drove yesterday briefly, a very nice blue car. You see, Kia have decided that people that maybe want a sportier car don't want all the unnecessary fripperies and extras and features that add weight and cost and complexity to a car. You want something a little bit more basic, a little bit more boiled down. And this one is, it's not so much a basic because there's still loads and loads of nice features in it, but it's a simpler car, and this is the one that would appeal to the more purist petrol head. So this has a 6-speed manual rather than twin clutch box, because it is just the Cee'd rather than the Cee'd. It is a 5-door regular backed car, not the shooting brake kind of style of the Cee'd, but it's got the 1.6 litre 201 horsepower engine rather than the smaller 1.4. So it's bright and sunny here in Spain, but very cold, very windy. So we are now gonna hit the road and have a drive. Let's go. And now, for those of you who have been patient and have sat through this very strange, somewhat social experiment of a video, here is your reward. I present to you the greatest driving road I think I have ever experienced. And I really, really am not making that up. There's a sign there saying for the next 6 kilometers, there are bends. It's not lying. Let's start with these. So you've got this nice left, right, left, and tight right, a little switchback. Now this is a great test of a car. Bigger, heavier cars would have serious issues there. Were I doing this road in something like a Stinger, that's the kind of corners that it wouldn't be too fond of, because that car is a real big GT car and it's basically impossible to disguise the extra weight in a corner like that. Now this car, of course, is much lighter. It's less than 1,400 kilos, and it's a lot of fun. Now, with only 200 horsepower, you do need to really use the gearbox, but actually, that engine pulls pretty hard from low down, and it goes all the way to its sort of 6,500 RPM red line. Now, we've just spent quite a bit of time getting all the lovely drive-bys that you're going to see dotted throughout this video, and the car, I managed to get the fuel economy down to about 17.6 mpg, but those of you that have driven cars hard before know that actually that's quite impressive, because generally when you're really on it in a car, your fuel economy is always going to be absolutely abysmal. As a frame of reference, my M3 gets about 21 to the gallon if I'm driving it like an absolute saint. This car just pulls in and grips. Now, I've driven it with both the traction and stability control on and off, and I'm pleased to report that actually the systems work brilliantly. Now, the weather's actually pretty good. It's very cold, but nice and dry. And at no point did I ever feel the systems intervening, which is fantastic. Some of these cars, you can find the systems get a little bit heavy-handed and can stop you having a lot of fun. Now, with cars like this, it's generally these tighter turns where they can sometimes come a little bit unstuck because you are asking the front wheels to do so much. They can protest a little bit. This, though, not at all. I think part of the reason is because it does have that more modest power figure, and honestly, I think most people that watch this channel will probably agree with me that it's an awful lot more fun to drive a slow car fast than to drive a fast car slowly. It does make a fairly pleasant noise for a little 1.6 four-cylinder turbo. And just look at that. That's unreal. Absolutely unreal. And the camera at the back is pointed the wrong side. I'm going to change that over. Two seconds, everyone. I'm moving a camera. There. Look at that. That's amazing. Hardly any traffic on here. There's a very reasonable speed limit. So, any Americans watching, by the way, the speed limit on this road is 55. Much better than the sort of 35 it would probably be if this was in the States. Okay, so the gearbox. The gearbox is quite precise. It's a little bit light for me. I do like a gearbox with a bit of weight to it. Oh, wow. Just look at that. That's just unreal. So pretty around here. The steering is electrically assisted. Now, it's got some feedback through it. The weight at normal speeds, even in sport mode, is a little lighter than I would like. I tend to prefer sort of heavier steering feel, but the system does weight up as you begin to press on. I mean, just...
We got to come back.
Oh yeah, we're coming back here. This is something else. This is really. American viewers will be very familiar with the tail of the Dragon. If you haven't seen that, actually, I drove that in a Kia Stinger last year, and it's this very famous road. I'm trying to remember which state it's in, because I went there from sort of Tennessee, then into North Carolina, and I can't remember if I actually wound up going back into Tennessee or somewhere like that. So someone in the comment section, I'm sure, can tell me exactly where it is, but that actually didn't have the more open, sort of slightly faster sections that this does. It was more switchback. I mean, neither of the roads are particularly forgiving, but also the tail of the Dragon is basically a tourist trap, whereas this is just spectacular. Just what a place. I just can't believe it. We've been so lucky. So this is the sporty review of this car. And you know what? Not the fastest thing in the world at all. You know, something like an A45 AMG, even an i30N would be going quicker down this road. But I'm having plenty of fun as it is. And Kia, by the way, are very, very wary of this car's sort of sister car, the i30N, and one of the reasons that they were very conscious of making the GT a more reasonably priced car. This is, you know, $4,000 cheaper than the GT Line S Pro Cee'd that we drove yesterday, is because they wanted it to be more accessible, and because if they priced it kind of at that $30,000 price point, no one would really buy it. They just go for the i30N. Now, I'm really, really hopeful, and of course I have asked Kia, and they of course have kept completely stum about it, whether they're going to be able to make a really exciting, true i30N rival. I mean, I really, really hope that they are. It's a bit of an odd one, really, because in theory, Kia is supposed to be the sportier out of the two brands. It's why they got the Stinger. So why Hyundai then got the i30N, I don't know. This car, by the way, although it is a Kia, is actually a result, both stylistically and design-wise and engineering, of Kia in Frankfurt. You know, it's a European car. Whoa. Okay. That's unreal. Okay, I'm sending my cameraman out now to show you what I can see. He's going to go out, and I'm going to change the camera at the back to the other side now because the view's even better. Now, in interior terms, this car is very, very nice indeed. Kia have been on this massive push to improve the overall quality of their cars for quite a long time. And that's not just in terms of technology and things like that, but also materials, feel, fit, finish, everything. And it's really, really working. We're driving very, very hard over some very broken ground. And there's a fortress. There's a freaking fortress up there. I'm going to have to stop again in a minute and send...
It's a monastery, isn't it? The monastery, that's what it is.
Oh, that's the monastery. Yeah, that's
the monastery. There is a fortress at the top up there.
That's it. This is...
There's a car. We are coming back here.
Whoa. What do you think is a monastery / B&B?
Yeah, I reckon the monks bring.
Do you think it's on Airbnb?
Yeah, I reckon the monks bring you breakfast.
Sister Mary is a super host. And it's January. It's like the sort of halfway through January. I mean, back home it was snowing when we left. It was all a bit horrible and miserable. And then out here it's actually really, really quite nice. I mean, look, I know there's other guys out there getting taken out to, you know, Dubai to drive supercars and stuff all the time. And that's wonderful and lovely. And, you know, if someone came along and said to me, hey, do you want to come and drive our supercar in Dubai? I mean, I'm not gonna say no, but sorry, there's a photo opportunity. We're just surrounded by good views. So that is the sporty driving nice road review of the new Kia Cee'd GT done. The next portion of this is going to be how it does on a big road trip and a massive Euro shopping trip. So we're going to cut this here.
Quite glowy out there.
It's very blustery, isn't it? You see, that's the car's not moving, that's the wind. So we're going to stop this here and we're just going to carry on driving and enjoying ourselves. So you guys will join us a bit later on in the adventure. Now this car actually sounds really quite fruity when you're outside, even just sort of moving around at low speed at the petrol station. I've actually been really pleasantly surprised about how nice it sounds. Maybe it's because it is a lower powered engine. I don't know if this car is actually fitted with a petrol particulate filter. I know a lot of higher powered cars have had to, but maybe Kia have managed to do without in this case. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just going to put this car into sort of fifth gear and put my foot down in normal, and then I'll change it to sport. So here we go. Normal. Sport. Big difference. It's actually it's a pretty pleasant sound. Look, I know it's a bit phony or whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really bother me because you can just turn it off anyway. We've decided to stop off here at the remains of the old Reims Geo circuit. You may have seen pictures of this because it's something of a petrolhead pilgrimage point. Unfortunately, it is also a main road. Now, this circuit was, like many circuits of the day, essentially 3 bits of road that kind of joined up and closed off when the races came. Now, I'm sure this place used to echo with the glorious sounds of Formula One cars. In fact, it opened in 1926 and motor racing finally ceased here in 1972. They knocked down a few bits of the circuit. Formula One was still coming here until about 1966. Cars were still racing here up until about 69. And although some parts of the circuit are gone, they decided to leave these pits, the grandstand you've just seen, as a kind of tribute. And fortunately now, efforts are underway to preserve it. Now, we've now got still about 200 miles to go in France in the little Kia Cee'd GT, and we're now fully qualified to tell you what this car is like as a tourer. But because this is a slightly noisy destination, we're going to do that from inside the car. Now, it's reasonably well refined in here. On, what is it today? It's now Friday, and on Wednesday when we arrived, we got to drive the Cee'd GT Line S. Now, as previously mentioned, that is actually a more expensive car, even though it's the less sporty one with better equipment levels and things like that. And to be fair, for this kind of journey, that probably would have been a better car, but we wanted this for the fun, twisty stuff in Spain yesterday, and I think we're both very happy with our decision on that front. Now, because we're doing European speeds, this little 1.6 engine is being worked fairly hard. Now, at about 80, I'm doing about 3,250 RPM, and the fuel economy hasn't been stellar. Now, we're currently sat at 33.4 mpg as our average over the last 300 or so miles. That's not really brilliant, and it's also not close to the claimed 38 combined economy figure. Now, granted, we are doing higher speeds. If we were sat at 70, I'm sure we'd notice a significant increase in our economy. We also had yesterday some fairly severe wind to contend with, and that, of course, will make a big difference too. In fact, our fuel economy today overall has been a lot better than yesterday, probably for that very reason. As you can also tell, it is very cold today. It's, according to the car, 3 degrees, and yeah, it feels like it's 3 degrees at best. This hasn't actually snowed today, and I'm not even sure it snowed yesterday, so this has been on the ground for quite a while, and generally when cars are cold, fuel economy figures do suffer somewhat. But we are having a very good time. The 7-speed DSG or DCT style box, the double clutch box that's available in these cars, is probably going to be a little longer legged for these kind of journeys and a little bit better suited. But again, we're happy to have the sportier, nicer version of this. I've been giving some thought as well as to what you would actually compare this with. This isn't meant to be, say, an i30N rival or a Focus ST rival, really. Even, say, something like the Alfa Romeo Giulietta, that has more power, you know, a noticeable amount more power as well. But this counters by being much plusher and nicer inside. I was on the Ford website yesterday to try and find out which Focus it would be most comparable with, and unfortunately at the moment, Ford haven't got an ST model out. They've got ST line models out, and the fruitiest engine you can get those with is a 1.5 litre 180 horsepower engine, which I believe is a version of the 3-cylinder EcoBoost that's used in the Fiesta ST. This car, of course, is a class size up from the Fiesta ST, so you can't really compare it. Now, this car's got enough luxuries inside that I would say you really want to compare it with the Ford Vignale series, but again, that then winds up being a lot more expensive than this. This is missing a few things. Like, one of the things we really have missed in this car compared to the GT Line S car that we drove is the nice sound system. Those had a JBL speaker system in them. This has a very, very basic and not great quality speaker system. I wish you could option that in, but unfortunately the way Kia work, you kind of pick your trim level and you pick your color, and that's basically it. You can't do anything to improve it. So that's a bit of a shame, but I understand why that is. These are the compromises that have to be made when you're making this quality car at this volume and at this price. But as a guy that really appreciates having a decent sound system in the car, that would have been nice.
Everything else though is pretty similar. These seats are nice. Again, they're trimmed in a more sporty fashion with this Alcantara centre, red stitching everywhere. I prefer the all-leather interior of the other cars. I prefer the fact that the car had a sunroof and all this stuff. But of course, as Kia said to me, very honestly, if they added all that stuff back in, the price they would probably have to charge for this car would make it probably uncompetitive, and that's absolutely fine. The engine itself is actually quite decent when you're in normal mode. It's not too intrusive. The ride is also pretty decent, but in fairness, European roads, certainly European auto routes, are better paved than those in the UK, and when I get the car home I am going to put some miles on it to give it a thorough testing in the UK to see how she handles. But so far it's done pretty well. Again, it isn't something that's too compromised because it's not a hot hatch, it's like quite a warm hatch, you know. It's not a Vindaloo, it's more like, I suppose, a Jalfrezi or something like that, you know, not a Corma. It's just a little bit warm, and it's nice. It does everything you sort of really need it to. One thing that actually is really quite pleasant when you are doing longer miles is having this really nice wheel. I love the style of wheel that Kia are using at the minute with this perforated leather on the side, this red stitching. It's a lovely thing to hold, and when you've got it in your hands for hours on end, that does make a difference. I'm not at all uncomfortable. I think the driving position is pretty good. You've got plenty of adjustment. These seats, again, are only part electric versus the almost full electric driver's seat of the bigger, more expensive, more luxurious Pro Cee'd GT Line S. But generally, we get everything we need. It is a heated steering wheel as well, and we do have heated seats too. That's quite nice. And there's plenty of room in here too. Reversing cameras, very high quality, so for maneuvering around and doing that sort of stuff, especially on the wrong side of the car, it can be very, very useful. Visibility is also pretty good because you even have a tiny little window at the back that does make a difference. And same on the Pro Cee'd. There is enough glass in the car that visibility is very, very good in comparison to a lot of modern cars, which tend to have massive B-pillars right here. They've managed to avoid that in this, and for me, visibility out is great. My mum's got an Alfa Romeo Giulietta, and for me, side visibility is pretty bad because of that big, thick B-pillar. Otherwise, though, we're enjoying this car, so it's going to be knuckle down, get the miles done, get home, and then we'll round up. And now, part 1 of 2 of our final test of the all-new Kia Cee'd GT. We're on a booze cruise, well, a really, really small one anyway. We're in Calais, and pretty much one of the few reasons to come to Calais as a destination is to get cheap alcohol. Now, the truth is that it's not actually anywhere near cheap enough, or, well, not cheap compared to back home as it used to be, but we're gonna head in there and pick up some bottles of vino to take home for my mother, so. One box. Yeah. Happy days. That's what we need. Just yep, just that. Now, we have actually filled the boot entirely with our filming kit, massive suitcase and everything else. So this is just going to sit nicely, neatly in the back. And these seats do fold, but that leaves us just a bit of room down here with some goodies for ourselves. Let's go. BNs.
I haven't had BNs in ages. I don't show BNs that much either. They're very dry. Oh yeah, they're good. Yep, thank you.
Just like that's a lot of carrots and peas for like one person. Just cook it, they're brilliant. Ooh, cool cars, cool kids. How many of these do you want?
I'll give me one probably. Yeah, one pack that will do. It's lovely. I like this stuff.
And the final test, we have a basket full of French shopping and a car to load up, which has already got a lot of stuff in it. Aha! We've got ya!
We're like, nope, just as premium importers right here, we said that came for profit.
I thought you might have that, yeah. You know what this looks like? This looks like a TV program when they've gone, here is an average family's week's shopping. They survive almost entirely on shit. And there we have it. We are now at the lovely port of Calais. We gotta wait here for about an hour and 10 minutes before we can get on the boat. And we have essentially completed our time with the car. As mentioned, the car's going to be with me for a few days when we get home, and I may or may not make a video with it when I get there. By the time you see this one, unfortunately, the car will already be back with Kia, who I do want to thank again for lending it to us and letting us go a little bit off-piste. It is rather remarkable to think. I know that this may not look like the most unusual and special of cars, but we really are the first people outside the factory to do a proper road trip with this, and it's been a pretty good companion. Has it been perfect? No. Would have been nice if it was a little bit better on fuel. Lawrie got about 3 electric shocks off of it as well, so we're going to feed that back to Kia too, and we'd have liked some better speakers, but we certainly had an absolute whale of a time in Barcelona, and we're already planning our own personal trip back to that road because it was top. Thank you all for watching. Please hit the like button, comment below if you haven't already, and do hit that subscribe button because it makes a really big difference to me and the channel. Bye bye.